And so the last thing as I leave you that I want to share with you about this ayah is why mention them by name. What does it do? What we're learning here is something about, you can call it psychology, communication psychology. You're being told don't worship or don't abandon your gods. That's in general. But then you mention each god by name. And each god by name has specific favors, specific benefits, specific history associated with it, and specific emotional attachments. The word ilah tells you that there are emotional attachments. So each one of them has it conjures up certain emotions, certain history, certain relationships with people. And so when you mention them by name, you don't just read this ayah like in beautiful recitation. You have to understand how it was originally said. You're going to leave what? After everything he did for you? Are you going to leave him? You're going to leave Suwa? Did you forget what happened with Suwa? What he did for us? You're going to leave Yahuth? Like each one of them they would name and like try to stir up emotion and a sense of loyalty and to make people think, no, okay, maybe I can leave what? But I'm going to leave Yahuth? Even Suwa? Even Nasr? You can't even respect them? You're going to leave all of them? How could you do this? How could all of that mean nothing to you? What this is telling us, more than anything else, the powerful lesson that's coming out of this is people that call to shirk can be very powerful speakers. And they can be very emotionally moving. And they can make falsehood sound so compelling and so true and so attractive. And so like, I'm going to feel like scum if I leave them. Which is the heart of this. All this history is important. But how do you analyze this history? What do you get out of it? This is the same rhetoric the Quraysh were going to use for their gods. And you have to understand the idols of our time. Just like we have to understand the Makkah of our time, we have to understand the idols of our time. A lot of times at a national level, at a collective level, the idols of our time are nationalism. Their love of country. When love of country takes you so far that you start pitting it against the true religion. You can either be Muslim or a true American. Or you can either be Muslim or a true citizen of the UK or a true citizen of Australia. You can't be both. Pick your side. It's pitted against one another. The idea of loyalty to your tradition, loyalty to your heritage, and Islam is basically called the religion of the enemy. The religion that annihilates and wipes out our history, that desecrates the memory of our ancestors. That becomes an idol by itself. Your loyalty to your history becomes an idol. An idol doesn't have to be carved out of wood or of metal or stone. An idol could be in your head. An idol could be an ideology. It could be a way of thinking. And those can stand in the way. The idea, the abstract idea of individual freedom that we pretty much worship in American society can itself become an idol. Islam is a threat to our freedom. Because freedom itself is almost a god. But freedom of what? Freedom to do whatever you want. Freedom to do whatever you want. That's the new sort of the next step for human civilization. And our children are being duped into this. They're being fed this line to the point where they say, why can't people do whatever makes them happy? Why can't they do that? Why do they have to have so many rules? Why is Allah going to punish people just because they want to be free? I love the idea. Sounds cool, freedom. It's a beautiful idea. Except when you realize all human beings, we were created ibad. We were created in slavery. And the only time we'll find freedom really is when we enslave ourselves to Allah. That's the only time we'll really find freedom. Otherwise, we're going to be enslaved to something or another. We already talked about that. People are going to be enslaved. People are going to worship something. At least you'll be free from all forms of slavery when you turn to slavery to Allah. That's the concept in Islam. So now in these ayat, the eloquence of these speakers and how powerfully they're able to instill the idea that if you are going to be true to your people, you can't have Islam. You can't have Islam is one of the most powerful logical fallacies used in rhetoric by people that do propaganda. In history, it's recorded in the Quran, and it's also done throughout history, and it's even being done now. You can compare Islam to love of country, love of people, love of freedom. Pick something. Pick an idea, put Islam on the other side of it, and have them clash with each other. And the reality of it, maybe they don't clash with each other. But you want to make it seem that way. And by the way, if it's true that Wad, Suwa', Yahuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr are actually good ancestors, then coming to Islam is actually being true to their legacy and not abandoning it. That's the funny part. The irony of it is, if you really want to be loyal to, Wad, Yahuth, Ya'uq, Suwa', Nasr, Ya'uq and Nasr, if you want to be true to these people that were righteous people of the past, people of Tawheed, then you've actually gone back to the way things originally were before Shaitan corrupted them. So you've revived tradition. Now let's bring things a little closer to home. Our traditions. One of the ways you can make the truth feel like falsehood is you make someone feel bad. I'll say that again. One of the ways you can make the truth feel like falsehood is by making someone feel bad. So you're right. You come from a family, let's just pick on Pakistanis because I'm Pakistani. You come from a Pakistani family and you're the only son in the Pakistani family. Oh no. And you decide that you want to get married not in the Pakistani way. There's not going to be a huge, overly extravagant wedding. It's going to be simple. You start telling your mom it's going to be at the masjid. Your mom says, Hi Allah. हमारे तो इतने अरमान थे, कितने ख्वाब देखे थे. How many dreams we saw that we're going to book that hall that costs like $25,000, then it's $35 a plate. We were so hoping to get in, bury ourselves under credit card debt for your wedding. What do you mean you want to do nikah at the masjid? What do you mean you don't want to have 8 different ceremonies? What do you mean we're not going to charge the girl's family jahez? What do you mean? No, Mom, I don't want to do that. We should give them... What? Don't say that. Did you tell them that? Shh. You be quiet. What would your uncle say? What would your elders say? And Mom, I know at my sister's wedding, we had certain things. We're not going to have them at my wedding. At my older brother's wedding, we had a DJ and we had a party, and we're not going to have them at my wedding. I'm not going to do it. What are you saying? What do you mean you're not going to have it? You don't want us to be happy? Are we all kuffar? Are we non-Muslim to you? Is that what your Islam teaches you? That your mother's going to hell? Huh? Tell me. No, tell me, please. Tell me about your Islam. You're so righteous. We don't know anything. You know everything. This child that I raised is going to teach me Islam now, and they're going to give you these speeches. And guess what? They're not going to feel good. They're going to feel pretty bad. And you're going to sit there like, if there was a way I could melt and just go into the sewage system and disappear, I would. And you're going to hear some really hurtful speeches. That'll make you feel like you're a traitor to the family, you have stabbed people's hopes, you have broken mothers' hearts, you have embarrassed the entire clan, you have, oh my God, they will lay it on you thick. It's going to be awesome. And you can't lose your temper, you can't get wild, you have to keep your cool, and you have to keep listening to that stuff, and more of it, and more of it, and more of it, and more of it. One of the ways to make falsehood look good is to make someone feel bad about the truth. He's right. You're wrong. But he feels bad and you feel pretty good. It's pretty amazing. You can do that. It works. It works. And it's not just done by mushrikun, with people that come to Islam. It was done by Sahaba's parents. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas' mother said, oh, you're accepting Islam. I raised you. She was a single mother. I raised you. I worked so you can be raised, so I could feed you. And you're going to leave my religion? You're going to accept it? You're going to embarrass our family? I will not eat until you come back to this religion. She says to her son, I will not eat. She's starving herself to death. And he can't leave Islam. And they're at a crossroads. The emotional hell he must have gone through to do that. Loved ones will do that to you. Loved ones will do that. La tadharunna alihatakum. The word kum there is for loyalty. These are your gods. How can you leave them? Your father worshipped them. You have no respect for your father? They won't even say worship the God, they'll say respect your father. Would you like to spit on his grave right now? Go ahead. That's what you're doing. And this young man is listening to this can't even answer, because it's not logical. If it's logical, you can try to answer it. This is all emotional rhetoric. To emotional rhetoric, learn a lesson, people, especially young people. When you get emotional rhetoric, you cannot respond because it's not based on reason. So if you try to reason, they'll get even more emotional and things will get worse than they were in the beginning. So just be quiet. It's not reason. You can't reason with people that are in an emotional state. Don't try. You will fail. You will feel worse. And if you try to reason with your elders, they'll say, oh, you're going to teach us how to think now too. Oh, you're so smart now. And you say, I'm just being logical. Oh, we're the illogical ones. I see, I see. Please, teach us more logic. Well, let me grab a paper and pen. Go ahead. I'm taking notes. You're going to hear that. This is what we're learning in these ayat. لا تذرن ودا ولا سواعا ولا يغوث ويعوق ونصرا. And that works, man. That kind of emotional rhetoric, it does its job. People crumble. People crumble. This same rhetoric was used, by the way, by Ibrahim's father. وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا لَهَا عَابِدِينَ. Ibrahim alayhi salam asked, that's the logical question. Why are you sitting in front of this piece of wood? Why are you sitting there in such devotion, staring at a piece of wood? I mean, you carved it into this. You made this. You could have made that into Mickey Mouse. You could have made that into anything else. It's just wood. It's still wood. It's not anything else. And he says, we found our fathers doing this. What is he saying to him? I am your father. I respected my father. Why can't you respect your father? That's what he's telling him. That's the gist of his speech. He's saying by being who you are disrespecting your father. This is the power of tradition. Tradition is a very powerful force. It's not a small thing. Family ties and tradition are a very powerful force. I salute the women and the men who become Muslim in a majority non-Muslim family. People who become Muslim from a Hindu family, from a Sikh family, from a Christian family, from a Jewish family. That's not an easy thing to do. You're taking on a firestorm. I also salute the people who come from Muslim families and decide some point in their life to start acting like a Muslim. Because it's not easy to do. Because you have a tradition behind you of not really taking Islam that seriously, and all of a sudden the girl that we sent to college, we paid money, good money to send her to NYU. And then she came back after like one semester and she was wearing a hijab, and we're like, what are you doing? Why are you wearing a hijab? What are you going to this conference? What conference? What is this conference? Islamic conference? I thought it was a concert. I was okay with that. Why are you going to a conference? And people are losing their mind because of their children turning towards their religion. And then they say, why are you doing this to the family? That's the best line ever. Why are you doing this to the family? Why can't you be normal again? And when you hear, why can't you be normal again? Remind yourself of the words of the Prophet ﷺ. فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَى. Congratulations to the weirdos. That's what he said. Islam started as something weird. People thought it was weird, and it'll come back as something weird. Congratulations to the weirdos. Everybody thinks you're weird. You're crazy. But that's what makes you awesome. Congratulate yourselves for being weird, for being the social outcasts, for being crazy enough to spend 2 hours a day trying to study Quran in Ramadan when you could have been sleeping. Or there's so many good dramas on TV nowadays, on satellite, I'm sure. Ramadan specials, There's so many awesome, soap operas on Egyptian television, I'm sure. People could have been watching. They're here. Yeah. Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Okay, at least you're doing it in Ramadan, but don't continue. This is crazy. You're getting a little too extreme here. I want to give you one last example about this, just to bring this point home, just drive this nail in the head. The culture I come from, we have a problem with extravagant weddings. That's why I keep bringing them up, because it puts people in a lot of trouble. And not just extravagant weddings, inappropriate settings in our weddings, inappropriate settings in our social gatherings. And it's going to start with Eid. I mean, Ramadan is a fun time, but for a lot of people that are serious about their religion, Eid is a very difficult time for them, because they have to go to Eid with the extended family who doesn't have the same guidelines as you do, but you can't cut ties either, and you just don't know what to tell your kids. When when your 16-year-old goes and visits their 18-year-old who's dressed like she's dressed for Eid, you have a hard time having that conversation. But anyway, you have a wedding. You have a wedding. And people are dressed in, the way they dress. And the son says, no, we're not going to do our wedding this way. I'm going to do it differently. And they say, you're embarrassing your family. This is the way we do things. This is the way we've always done things. That isn't true. Wad, Suwa', Yahuth, Yaruq, Nasr, they were originally righteous people. Pull out an old picture of grandma and grandpa. Some black and white photo from the 1920s. Of the same family who's super modern. Pull out a picture of grandma and grandpa. Guess what? Grandpa's got a big old beard. Grandma, you can't even see her face because her chadar is draping over her face. I'm letting the family down? That is our family. That's our tradition. What have we done? We've adopted Hindu tradition. We've adopted pagan tradition. And we've celebrated it. We are bigger consumers of, in the Indo-Pak world, of like Indian movies and Hindu, celebrations and culture. And even Hindi words are making its way into, Muslim-speaking cultures so fast, and they've become our culture now. They just become our culture. And what that's done to us, subhanAllah, in overwhelming numbers, is that Islam itself has become weird. Any shred of it is weird. Same things happen with the Arab world. The Arabs have, because they're lighter skinned, especially the ones that come here, their kids adapt to like Hispanic culture and to like, they blend with white friends, and they just can't even tell they're Arab sometimes. They just mix in the crowd. And we lose them. The music industry, the film industry, you can't tell the difference. The only difference is language. Culturally, there's no difference. The scandalous way in which they're dressed on their TVs, how the women are dressed on American television or British television, it's the same thing. Language is the only difference. It's the same stuff. It's taken over the world, a culture. And the idea of holding on to your culture and calling all of that freedom, calling all of that happiness, calling all of that liberty, you can spin it with beautiful words. Evil is still evil. Shamelessness is still shamelessness. Indecency is still indecency, no matter how much you glorify it. وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Allah Azza wa Jal gave us such beautiful standards. Even if the overwhelming multitude of filth impresses you, it's still filthy. That's what Allah says. It's going to be in huge multitudes, meaning people of value are going to be few and far between. You're going to have to seek them out and find support in them. You're going to have to be in communities and with families and family friends that are like-minded so you can save yourselves. Because otherwise the flood of culture is very powerful. It's like trying to swim upstream. It's very hard. I commend the kids that go to public school because their dad has a job somewhere in like Macon, Georgia, or like Little Rock, Arkansas, or they've got a job out there and they have to live there, and they're the only Muslim kid in their public school. And they're still trying to hold on to their Islam. I don't know how they're holding on. That's an Abrahamic miracle to me. Ibrahim alayhi salam being born in the household of an idol worshipper and an idol manufacturer. But the fact that they can hold on to their Islam is amazing to me. And a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are losing it,